welcome to my channel. I'm gonna go ahead and be talking about the latest lens that I went ahead and picked up, and that is the Fujifilm 16mm f1.4. Here is the lens right here. I'll go ahead and show you the lens in a lot more detail. However, for right now, I'm just gonna go ahead and start by talking about why I went ahead and bought the lens. Of course, I'll also talk about my experience using this lens. I have just purchased it very recently for about a week, maybe a week and a half. I wouldn't call myself an expert when it comes to the math and the science or the specs of a camera or a camera lens. And I also think everything that has been said about this lens has already been said in other multiple YouTube videos about this lens. This is just me giving you my personal opinion on the lens and my overall first impression on it, just over having it for about a week. So let's go ahead and get into it, and let me go ahead and talk about why I bought this lens. I bought this lens honestly mostly because I wanted it. I wouldn't say it's a lens that I need right now as of this moment, because I already have two really great, really amazing lenses. However, I did want this lens, and I've been wanting it for about some time, for about 3 months ever since I did purchase the Fujifilm X-T3. I believe it's considered one of the top 5 best lenses ever produced by Fujifilm. I even heard some people say it might be the best lens Fujifilm has ever produced. It has an aperture that goes all the way to 1.4, which is something that I really do like, and also it is a wide angle lens. I don't really have any wide angle lenses. I have the 35mm f2 and I have the 56mm f1.2. Now those two lenses are really amazing. I really love the 56mm because it produces, of course, that amazing bokeh, and also that is a really amazing portrait lens. However, I wanted to also buy something that would be a lot more suited for very wide shots that would be able to put a lot of imagery into the photos themselves. So that's particularly why I bought this lens, and yeah, that's overall why I bought the lens. Let me go ahead and show you the actual lens itself, how it looks physically. So here is the lens. Alright, so here's the lens right here. As you can see, this is the lens hood. This is how it pretty much looks when you put the lens hood on. This lens hood, actually, I believe it's made out of plastic, and it's really useful because it was raining the other day, and I went on and took pictures with it, and so that was really helpful. So this is the lens hood right here. This is what the lens looks like without the lens hood. There you go, nice build. Here is the front of the lens. Here is the aperture ring, and here is the focus ring. Now, when I first used this lens, I was getting really frustrated because, as you can see, you cannot move the focus ring. It's locked, and I was frustrated at first. I was like, "What's wrong with this glass?" However, I did my research. I watched videos, and you just have to unlock. You just have to unlock it like this, and then you can move it very nice and very smooth. So this focus ring, it's not really all that firm. Either is the aperture ring. Everything that you adjust on the lens feels very, very smooth. That may be a pro for some people, it might be a con. I really do like to use this lens mostly when it comes to manual focus, because I want to get the most focus and most sharp images possible. So this is where I really do like using the manual and focusing on that rather than the autofocus. So it's really nice and it's really fast, so that's kind of convenient. And the aperture, I will say the aperture on this, it's not as firm as I would say the 35mm f2 lenses. That aperture ring is very, very firm. This one is a lot more smoother, but to me that's not really a problem. I really do like the fast smoothness that the aperture has, and I also really like the sound that it produces. Really neat. So let's go ahead and take the lens cap off and the lens hood. So there you go. It feels very, just the manufacturing and the protection of the lens is really good. So here's this metal plate, really nice, really protective, and here's the lens itself in all its glory. So yeah, it's a really, really nice piece of glass. I don't want to repeat myself, because I'm probably going to say the same thing that I said about the Fujifilm 35mm f2, but when it comes to the build quality, I love the build quality that Fujifilm crafts and produces on their lenses. This is obviously a bigger lens than the 35mm f2, and it's a little bit heavier. Like, it has a couple more pounds, but that being said, it's not really all that heavy. It feels really light, and it actually feels really good when you put it on your camera, say an X-T3 or maybe an X-T4 or an X2 or X1. So I love the build quality. I like the fact that it's made out of metal. It feels very protective. The lens is also weather sealed, which is a huge plus. And what's one more thing I was going to say? Yeah, I do love, and I really do love the craftsmanship that Fujifilm produces on their lenses. Like I said, with the 35mm and this lens itself, it feels like an old school lens, and that's what's really cool about it. It has this very vintage look, but at the same time it feels also very, very modern. So that's one thing I like about this lens, and of course the 35mm f2. Alright, so that was the build quality. And yeah, overall, very well built lens. I'm really impressed by it. It really was worth the money. When I bought this lens, it was actually a bit down in price. I did decide to go full price on this lens, which means I did not decide to go on eBay and buy it. But if you are going to buy this lens, the lens is about $1,000. I actually got it when it was like very low in price. It wasn't that big when it comes to price drop. The lens is normally around $1,000. However, recently online it just went down to like $850. However, it's not really that small of a price drop because it still ended up costing about $900 some, including tax. But to me, that's overall not a bad deal for a lens that's this great and this good in terms of quality, and it's under $1,000. It really was worth the money. And even if you do buy it full price, as of right now, the lens just went back to its original price, which is $1,000 as of the time of me filming this video. However, I do recommend it if you do have the money. I mean, yeah, if you are a person who likes taking pictures, you like playing around with prime lenses, and you really would love to buy a wide-angle lens, this lens is worth the price and it's worth the money. However, you could do yourself a favor, save up your money. So if you are going to buy this lens, just do your research, figure out if this lens is for you or if it's not. And if you are really excited about buying this lens and you really want it, then I do say, yeah, it is worth the price. However, if you're not really crazy about it, but you still want to buy a lens, then yeah, go ahead and go on eBay and find a decent price. Just wanted to put that out there real quick. Let me go ahead and basically talk about my overall experience when it comes to playing around with this lens for about a week. What I like about it and what I don't like about it. Let me go ahead and start about what I don't like, because there's not really much to say when it comes to not liking the lens. My very first impression when I decided to go out and shoot with this lens was that I wasn't really impressed with the sharpness of the photos themselves, and honestly that was just me being kind of nitpicky a little bit. And also, I wasn't really using the lens right at first. I was comparing the images on this lens to my 35mm f2, and I just noticed the 35mm f2 is cheaper, it's $400, but the images seem to be a lot more sharper. But one thing that the 35mm f2 doesn't do a good job at, which this lens does beautifully, is capture so much imagery in a very wide field of view. So that's the major pro of this lens. And when it comes to sharpness and image quality, this lens is actually really good. At first I kept my aperture to f1.4, and when it comes to taking long distance shots, from what I've learned, you want to lower the aperture a lot more. So I lowered my aperture to around 5.6 to 2.8 when it comes to taking far, wide, long distance imagery. Say like if I'm taking a picture of a field, or if I'm taking pictures of big, wide, large buildings, this lens does a really good job at taking pictures of really huge subjects like buildings, like city streets. Basically, if you want to do landscaping, if you're into landscaping photography, this lens is king when it comes to that, and it is a lot more superior compared to the 35mm f2. And also, yeah, if you really do want really amazing sharp images, you will get that with this lens. You just have to use it right. Learn how to use your manual focus, and also if you do like using autofocus, you could get away with autofocus. I like using manual focus with this lens because, I don't know, you're just a lot more confident with the photo that you're gonna get compared to autofocus. So I like using manual focus, and I really love using f5.6 and f2.8, so that's really great. So yeah, it's an amazing lens when it comes to landscape photography. And how is it when you do portrait photography? If I were going to do portraits, I would like to use the 56mm f1.2, or even the 35mm f2, because I do like the bokeh that those lenses produces. However, this lens does really give this jarring, dreamlike quality to portraits that kind of make the photos stand out. If you're a person who likes taking portraits, but you want the imagery to basically fit in and blend in with the portrait itself and the subject that you're producing, this lens is really good, and it allows you to be a lot more creative with your portrait photography. Overall, what is it I like about this lens? I love the fact that you can do so many different things with this lens. This is mostly why I actually love this lens, and why when I've gone out and I've taken pictures, I do have the other two lenses that I have, but this is probably the lens that I do use the most, because you can be able to do a lot of different things with it. You can take big wide shots, you can take landscape photography, and you can also do portrait photography. So, you know, you could also do those things with the 56mm and the 35mm f2, and those lenses are really great, really amazing lens. I'll make a video on the 56mm real soon, but I love the 16mm f1.4 because it produces really great images, and you can get away with doing very, very different things with the lens, and also it kind of also allows you to be a bit more creative and try experimenting and doing different things. So yeah, the 60mm f1.4, worth the money. I'm really happy I got it, and I just wanted to make a video sharing with you all my overall thoughts on the lens, my experience playing around with this lens, and why I bought it. So I believe that's all I have to say, and this will be the end of this video. And of course, if you did make it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and yeah, more videos will be coming very, very soon. In the meantime, have a good one and stay safe.